I've been dreading this, but do you want to talk about Holmes and Watson?
No, but I've watched it now, so I may as well get some use out of it.
You must.
So, just a handful of episodes ago now, Craig, we were talking about two very notable Sherlock Holmes adaptations.
We are indeed, which is why I convinced myself this might be worth catching up with.
Yeah, so it's a pleasing coincidence that another adaptation, which in fact references both of those films, that's The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows, has come along so soon afterwards. Or is it a pleasing coincidence? Well, no. No, it is not. There is absolutely nothing pleasing about this turd of a film whatsoever. Writer and director Aidan Cohen reunites Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby, and Step Brothers co-stars Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly as, curiously enough, Holmes and Watson. I'm not sure about you, Craig, but I know Scott certainly shares my appreciation for Talladega Nights, though Gary Cole and Karen the Cougar play a large part in that.
Mm-hmm. And
while Step Brothers was fairly middling, it did have its moments. Grown men beating up snotty pre-early teen asshats is far more amusing than it ought to be, certainly for a grown man. Sadly, it seems that Holmes and Watson was written both for and by those same asshat teens, being as it is full of unsophisticated humour, lazy topical references and penis jokes.
Do you know what's funny, Drew?
Not this film.
Accents and masturbation.
Hilarious, Craig, hilarious.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
And the plot, such as it is that Professor Moriarty has... Yeah, you know what? Screw this, I can't be bothered with this. Someone's going to kill Queen Victoria, despite this seemingly being set after she died anyway. Only one of many geographical and chronological errors, and Holmes and Watson must stop this. They mostly do this by failing, falling, idiocy, and luck, while parodying, poorly, Guy Ritchie's film and making incredibly on-the-nose references to current news topics and pop culture.
Oh, God.
Putting this squarely alongside the "do you get this" reference comedy of trash-like date movie, and ensuring a shelf life of about 3.5 weeks. It has a talented cast, all of whom are squandered, and Scottish Kelly MacDonald, from Scottish Glasgow, in Scottish Scotland, is honestly so bad in this that I doubted the veracity of her actual Scottish accent, though she, as with the rest, suffers primarily at the hands of a risible script. While John C. Reilly's career seems to be in rude health, it's sad to see that the funny days of the now 51-year-old Ferrell, here sporting a frankly embarrassing amount of makeup in a pathetic and unsuccessful attempt to fool us otherwise, are so far in the past. And I sincerely hope we can get more mileage out of his Ron Burgundy podcast than he could from this lazy, ill-conceived, poorly executed drivel. I'd lay into the numerous inaccuracies, but it simply doesn't deserve it, and anyway they can almost certainly be explained away by the 12-year-old who ghost wrote this, neither knowing nor caring. I've heard of...
Sorry, go on.
Oh, no, it's okay.
No, it's just as baffling. It's also baffling.
Yeah. I've heard of the Titanic, and that had something to do with Britain, right? That'll do. I'll stick the Titanic in there.
Yeah. And what is arguably one of the film's funnier moments, which is not to say it got a laugh out of me, but there was a certain satisfaction in them waving their loved ones off onto the Titanic, even if, again, geographically, it was in perhaps the wrong place.
Yes, built in Belfast, launched from Southampton, why is it in London?
Yeah.
And after Queen Victoria died. But no, you're making me think about it, Craig.
What's a couple of 100 miles?
Unmitigated pish. I'll say it's like, I'm aware of the 3 times that I did laugh, well, sort of half laughed at one of them. Actually, the very first thing that appears in the film made me laugh, and I thought, perhaps this is not going to be quite as bad. When it makes this kind of really worthy sounding quote, a really deep quote, and then claims it's from Hannah Montana.
Yeah.
I chuckled at that.
Yeah.
I sort of half chuckled, an entire courtroom full of people saying, "Oh, he's a wanker."
He's a wanker. Yeah.
And then
which is a payoff to a set of eagerly delivered euphemisms, but which they had clearly given up on halfway through.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And the other time, I did laugh, a genuine laugh, at the supposed progressive female doctor saying that hysterectomies release hundreds of demons. I genuinely laughed at that. That totally threw me. I wasn't expecting that.
See, by that point, I had pretty much given up the ghost. It took me 3 attempts to watch this over 3 nights. But I too started out I actually in the first 5 minutes of this laughed 3 or 4 times, and I thought it was going to get by on just being stupid enough.
Yeah.
In the way that I always want to give comedies that other people write off a chance, because I have a couple of instances now of stuff that has been universally panned that actually just makes me laugh time and time again. And chiefly, I would think of Hot Rod, which is a film that got absolutely bombed, got absolutely hammered, and makes me laugh like a drain every damn time I watch it. And I was hoping for something similar to this. I understand that there are actually 2 different openings to this film, depending on which territory you watched it in. So American audiences, bizarrely, American audiences do not get the opening gambit we get of Watson attempting to commit suicide after returning from the Afghan war. And the sort of misheard exchange between him and Holmes, who is tending to some sort of oversized gourd in his garden patch. Is it Amaro trying to convince him to, if he's going to jump, to do it and move over and do it in someone else's garden. There were a couple of not that there's anything inherently about the notion of someone coming back from war with PTSD and attempting to take their life, but in that exchange there were a couple of parts that made me laugh, not least of all Will Ferrell polishing a marrow and calling it a big beautiful bitch. And then there was other stuff. The courtroom scene. This film reminded me of an affection I have for the word onanism, which rekindled that affection. A word which no one has used in over 100 years. But the point is that sort of anachronistic language trait is something that this film just thinks is a joke in and of itself. But that courtroom scene, it sets up this whole thing with Watson, where he'll just like charge into a room and start randomly shooting off his gun. And I honestly thought that was going to, for some reason, that really made me laugh. And I thought it was going to happen again later in the movie, and it doesn't. Yeah, it's never used again.
That happens right after the first, because the first time it's against bees.
That's right.
And then it does in the court. Oh, this is going to be a running joke of just like, because like again, it plays so heavily in the Guy Ritchie films, and
that like, whole thing, the Holmes vision thing, yeah,
but Jude Law being like a really great shot and stuff. And so they're like, okay, they're going to make Holmes in this, Watson in this, like really rely on the guns, but no, it doesn't, because whoever wrote that had no attention span.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But there was enough there to suggest, right, enough silly stuff is going to happen. But it's not even a case of what I expected. You know, when you have someone like Will Ferrell and then you pair them up, and this happened a lot with Jim Carrey in his movies, you get paired up with a director who just doesn't have the balls to tell him to shut up, or the studio just places more power in the hands of the actor than the director, and they don't know how to rein it in. It's not even necessarily a case of that, which I thought it might be. There are moments in there which are clearly moments that Ferrell has come up with. They're very sort of Ferrell tropes. The bit in the courtroom where he says something about a panther and then he goes to lick his hand and they've overdubbed like the sound of a panther snarling. That's straight away I thought, oh, okay, yeah, here we go. They've just let Ferrell run wild, and there's nothing less funny than a comic actor being given free rein. But I don't even think at the end of the day it was a case of that. I just think it is woefully poorly written, woefully poorly directed, and honest to God, I'm not the world's biggest fan of Ralph Fiennes, but my heart broke for him in this. You can watch him die. You can watch his soul wither away across the course of this movie, even though he's barely called upon. There are scenes where you can just tell he was dying, and he was just picturing his paycheck.
And he can do it funny so well. He can. Scott and I talked about how good he is in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
And Hail Caesar, right?
In Bruges.
Yeah, and I forget about in Bruges, yeah. It's not that he's without a sense of humour.
The gay director, yeah.
Yeah, it's not that he's without humour. Yeah, he can. Yeah. I think people often interpret him as being humourless, but actually he can do funny on film. But oh my goodness, and Pam Ferris as Queen Victoria, what? There's nothing to sustain this film across whatever 90 minutes, whatever it was.
Squander Steve Coogan as well. It's
just bizarre. So
laboured.
It has rightly died a death, and Ethan Cohen is a name which I feel like has cropped up loads lately, and yet when one looks at his IMDb, his CV on IMDb, between writing and directing, he doesn't actually have that much happening. I feel like I've heard his name more often in this and linked to more projects, particularly as a writer. But
weirdly, there's similar thought, because I know it's like his name is so similar to the good writer Ethan Cohen.
Yeah,
and I was like, so like I don't know whether because that. Being very careful with the distinction that nobody is confused when you're talking about whether that's maybe forced the name more to the front of my brain. But
yeah, I think it's because of that I feel like every time I see his name, I've gone, oh yeah, that guy, yeah, the guy who sounds awfully like, sort of thing. But I just had this weird impression that he'd done a lot more than this. So one would assume off the back of Holmes and Watson that he's, he might get put in the cooler for a while, and for once I wouldn't complain. Just a baffling waste of all the talent involved. Baffling.
Before we move on, we do have one bit of feedback on Twitter, and it is about this film. It's from The Marillion from Glasgow. I'm surprised he wasn't particularly offended by Kelly MacDonald's accent. And he said...
Wait, The Marillion? Is it fish?
There is a picture of him, and assuming it's him, it is not fish. It's spelled differently. It's Marillion, not Marillion.
Oh.
We don't have a celebrity follower, Craig.
Alas. Oh, what a shame. What a shame.
He said, Holmes and Watson was good, with an exclamation mark. So I hope you get better soon.
Yes. If you could let us know where to send the flowers.
Not Step Brothers good, but better than it had any right to be. John C. is a good pal for being a ballast to Will's sinking career. Sorry, I forgot to mention this earlier. He said Captain Marvel was watchable, and young Nick Fury FX was cracking effects. It was watchable, and yet the de-aging of Sam Jackson was a really great technical feat. Again, poor Clark Gregg. But we hope you recover from whatever malady caused you to think Holmes and Watson was good. I wish you all the best.
Yes, please keep tuning in. But let us know you're okay as well.